I think one of the things that we're faced with from an economic point of view is that there are an enormous number of things that we're being asked to do in the way of emissions and safety, and of course these things are going to substantially increase the price of a car. And I think we have to sort out those things that are most helpful and most meaningful to the public so that they will benefit the most for the dollars that they're going to have to pay for all this stuff.
A company the size of Ford Motor Company, it would seem to me, would certainly stand to gain something by possibly putting their 2 cents worth into some legislation on drivers. It seems to me that perhaps the driver is where you should aim at. Is there anything that Ford can do or proposes to do in this aspect?
Well, of course, we have been working very diligently with the people down in Washington to acquaint them with all the statistical data that we have as it relates to accidents and prevention of accidents, about the kinds of things that might be helpful in preventing accidents. At this point in time, I don't think we've been as successful as we'd hoped to be. I think one of the certainly it's common knowledge that the most serious hazard on the road today is the drinking driver. I don't think enough has been done nationally or in almost any state to curb the person that is drinking and driving. I think that's very, very important. Automobile inspection laws are not widespread throughout all the states. I think this is important. I think there are a number of things that can be done, and of course we're working with the people in Washington to see what we can do to help them, cause some of these things to happen.
Back to this business about emissions, we talked earlier about the fact that this would bring the cost of automobiles up. Is there any way to work with the petroleum companies any more closely than you are now to possibly come up with something that will meet proposed federal standards for 1975?
Well, of course, no one has worked closer with the petroleum companies than Ford Motor Company. I'm sure you're aware that we were the ones that formed the committee with the petroleum companies and with other companies to see what could be done in the area of petroleum, in the area of changing the kinds of fuel that we use in cars, in long-term definitions of the emissions problems associated with petroleum. We work very closely with the companies. We've made some great breakthroughs. We don't have the job done yet. I don't think that we can work any closer with them than we have in the past.
In certain types of crimes, there are certain types of crimes where probation would not be appropriate. I'm referring primarily to crimes such as murder with malice, armed robbery, forcible rape. The dangerous offender and the habitual criminal, he should not have probation, obviously, but that group constitutes less than 25% of our prison population. The other groups can be more effectively corrected by good probationary services. Many of them can, not all, but many of them can. And therefore the public would receive much more protection under adequate and good probation services than they're now receiving.
I feel it was a just decision.
Are you happy with it?
Yes, sir.
Do you feel you can function as assistant police chief now?
Very effectively.
Chief Wade, how has your family taken this entire episode?
Well, my children had an opportunity during the trial to learn that apathy is not the end thing.
Mm-hmm.
So this was evidenced with the kindness that was expressed to them and my family throughout this trial. As they sat through the trial day by day, it also strengthened their belief in me that I was innocent. And as they saw in the trial what was revealed as to our defense and evidence, they are steadfastly behind me and they know that I was innocent.
Well, Chief Wade, you did indeed have a great deal of support from your hometown of Garland, but this trial was in Dallas. And as you sat there in the courtroom and heard the guilty verdict come in, what was your reaction?
I was not happy with the verdict, of course. I know this is our court system for 6 men to judge you as whether you're guilty or not guilty. I feel that possibly they didn't weigh the evidence and our defense that was placed before them as they could have. However, I don't question this. This is our court system. I was amazed that the district attorney did ask for a maximum of 2 years and $500.
Why were you amazed?
The maximum hasn't been asked on anyone that I can remember in some time.
For first offense DWI?
Yes, sir.
Overall, I think the economy looks very good. As you know, employment's at an all-time high, savings at an all-time high. And though there certainly is a higher unemployment rate, it's important that there are more people employed today than there have been ever in the past, and that they're taking home more money than they've ever taken home, and they're saving more money. So there's a pent-up demand for the kinds of things we have to sell. And I think 1971 is going to be a very strong business year.
How are you going to be able to recoup the losses from last year? Are you going to be able to make up for that difference, or just take it in stride?
Well, I think we'll take it in stride. We had a pretty good 1970. It wasn't the greatest year, and we worked very hard for everything we got in 1970. But I think 71, 72, and the decade of the 70s are going to come in very strong.
two men that helped me out of the car, pulled the door open. I remember everything at the scene of the accident, and other than I did have a tremendous blow on the head, I was bleeding profusely. There were two arteries cut in my head, and I was bleeding badly and in need of medical help.
I will not ask you if you were DWI, but had you been drinking at all, Chief?
No, sir, I had not been drinking. I was not DWI.
What had you been doing prior to the accident?
Prior to the accident, I had dinner at the Cattleman's Cafe, downtown Dallas.
I understand you had also been doing some work for the Garland Police Department.
Yes, sir, this is true.
In the form of what?
In the form of vice and narcotic control.
Had you been in the police department any time shortly prior to the accident?
Yes, sir, I'd been in the police department at 6:15 to 6:30.
What was your condition then?
It was absolutely sober.
There was some comment that you and Dallas Police Chief Frank Dyson had a rift going. Any truth to that?
Chief Dyson and I have a common goal, and that is fighting crime. And I think going towards this goal, we make an excellent team together. I intend to cooperate in every way in reaching this goal.
Oh, I think he has brought forth an unusually large number of programs at this stage in his term, and a number of them with which I would agree. I think that there are a number of provisions, for example, in his medical care program that I think are good. I think we ought to encourage, for example, the utilization of outpatient facilities. I think this would cut down the cost of hospital care. I'm sure now the bill that finally comes out of the Congress will not be the bill as he is having it introduced. But I think that there are provisions in his bill that are good.
Do you think you'll continue to bend as he has recently to sort of mollify the other groups?
Gee, I don't know.
The code is ready. It's a product of over 5 years of effort by more than 100 individuals and organizations. It's a good code. It's ready to go. We could spend another 10 years rehashing the various policy issues that were discussed in putting the code together, and I don't think we'd come up with a document much different from the one we have. Our opponents have raised the very issues that particular groups representing particular disciplines and interests on the project raised during our committee meetings. The prosecutors, for example, didn't get everything they wanted. Defense didn't get everything they wanted. Neither did the judges, neither did anybody else. This isn't a code that any one of us would have written, and that's a good thing. It is a code, though, that everybody connected with it believes is a vast improvement over the present law. Right.
Best objections to the new proposed penal code is number one, it's really a difference in philosophy. They have a general reduction of penalties in every crime. They abolish some crimes, but the general reduction, I know of only 2 offenses that they raise the maximum penalty in, out of probably 1,000, 2,000 offenses. All of them is reduced penalties. Another provides for an easier and an earlier way to parole, get out of the penitentiary. They provide 3 or 4 new defenses to crime that we don't have now. Insanity, mistake of fact is a defense. Intoxication in some situations are defense under the new penal code. The overall objection to this is law enforcement has been hit by Supreme Court rulings, by a new Code of Criminal Procedure, and now to be hit by this, we are only asking them to wait 2 years to where we have a chance to amend their 5-year work.
There is a provision which says that everybody who is now in operation can continue as a non-conforming right. This still does not preclude the Board of Adjustment from calling a hearing in a particular situation and eliminating non-conforming use. But basically it says that everybody's there can remain there. The staff feels like that there should be some period of logical amortization applied to those uses now in existence. Whatever a reasonable period of time is, whether it's 6 months, whether it's a year or 2 years, we don't offer any recommendation other than the fact that there should be some period of time that everybody should comply. And the basic reason for this is that as it is now worded, it says that the guy that has a horse or a stable now does not have to comply with the law, but the guy who wants to buy him a horse next week does have to comply with the law.
Jay, because it is, number one, the most economical system, and number two, the most easily achieved in the shortest period of time.
How about cost?
Cost-wise, a properly run sanitary landfill is still the most economical means of disposing of solid waste known within the nation today. Our prices are averaging around $1.50 to $2 per ton for disposal.
The current organization of the Fort Worth Fire Department looks something like this. Under the fire chief are 5 departments: fire prevention, fire repair, firefighting, fire training, and fire dispatching. Each one of these is headed by a man of different rank. The new organization calls for the elimination virtually of the fire repair shop, fire training, and fire dispatching as departments, bringing them all together and putting them under a new department called Fire Services. Each one of these, then, the 3 departments, each under the supervision of a deputy chief. City Fire Chief Luther Himes said not only would this streamline the command of the Fort Worth Fire Department, but it would also have additional advantages for him.
This reorganization will affect me personally by freeing me from some of the routine, everyday duties that I've had to perform. This, by reorganizing and placing the responsibility with these men, then I am relieved of having to go to each individual division that we formerly had.
Why was the reorganization necessary at this time?
The reorganization was necessary at this time because at present there is a vacancy existing with the assistant chief's position. By reorganizing at this time, we will not have to reduce in rank the assistant chief.
This reorganization of the fire department, the first in quite some time, closely corresponds to recent reorganization in the Fort Worth Police Department. Chief Himes said that further reorganization will be necessary and it could come in the very near future. Jerry Park, Channel 8 News on the Move, Fort Worth.